Well, it sounds like we could have a bit of an active weather pattern here for this week ahead as we wrap up February and head into the month of March. Here to tell us more about it and give us the details, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions joins us for a look at weather. Eric, thanks for being with us. And, I'm looking at forecasts and reading things, but I want to hear the details from you. It sounds like we could have a bit of an active weather pattern kicking off here early this week. What's the latest you're seeing, Eric?
Yeah, there's that old saying like March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. I think I've got four March lions for you, and one of them's going to show up early in February. The pattern is just doing finally something I've wanted to do for a while, and that is the polar branch of the jet stream is working with the subtropical. Now, what does that mean? That means two different sources of flow coming into the United States. So here's the rundown. System number one's moving over the Rockies today, comes out tomorrow. It has the potential for severe weather in parts of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, maybe down into Missouri as well. And then behind it, sharp front comes through, dropping temperatures 30, 40, 50 degrees in the span of like 12 hours. Snow behind that. While all that happens, that system then moves toward the northeast. We follow up with a little weak one that comes out of Texas, goes to the southeast. Doesn't do a lot for the Corn Belt, but moves across the southern tier of the United States, bringing in moisture. And then by Thursday, the next big dog comes in the northwest. That one's slower, progresses much slower through the midsection of the country. It races off toward Canada. And then finally, around the 5th, 6th, and 7th of March, another guy's coming in the northwest, sweeps through the same area. So the reality of it is these four systems are stacked up and we need them. Why we need them is because our subsurface soil moisture in the Ohio Valley, the mid Mississippi Valley, is still showing the problems from last fall. And in fact, it's showing the problems from the last 4 years in some places like Iowa. Now, what this means is we have got to get a good recharge in the next 45 days. We did okay this winter, but we need more for the next 45 days to get us up to planting so that we've got the moisture reserves so that we can go any sort of a stretch of time in summer with some drier weather and be okay in the Midwest. So I need it. I need these systems. I need us to hate the end of winter and the start of spring, which by the way, spring starts, meteorological spring starts on Friday, and we are now less than a month away from the equinox. So we're there. It's go time. So a lot to talk about all week long about the weather, but the net effect of all of it needs to be recharge the soil moisture and do as little damage as possible on the severe weather side of it.
Because I think, to your point, obviously recharging that soil moisture so critical as we get to planting season and looking ahead to that spring outlook. As we've talked about before, we get to that certain window. We don't want it to be rainy and stormy. We want to have an opportunity to get in the field and put a crop in the ground, right, Eric?
That's right. So the good news is right now, my March outlooks, which I'm using all of my historical analog years that have El Ninos, and I've now compared it to the newest data from the CPC, the European model. I think we are on the wetter side of average coming from the southwest and northeast. That's good. We need to get the moisture in place. I mean, I hate to say it, Jesse. I can't remember if I told you this last week or the week before, but I would love it if we get a good slow moving March blizzard. I mean, man, bring us one in before we
Mhm.
need it, but soak us with that snow that's got a bunch of water in it. That'd be fantastic. I do see an active March. Now, El Nino is still in the background and it's spade excuse me, speed at which it fades, I try to get that out, is really important to understanding when the pattern might shift around in April. Now, normally this time of year, I'm just preaching and hollering tight windows, tight windows, tight windows. If we use El Nino as our kind of benchmark for what April could bring, I actually don't see as tight of windows as I've worried about in the past, which means I think they'll open up. We'll get a crop and going. But here's the question, Jesse. Everyone's just staring down in the Midwest, a record warm February. We've only had one shot at cold air in January. December was super mild. And a lot of folks are going, I'm worried about summer being hot and dry because there's a memory of really warm springs and terrible summers. And I get it. I know why that's there. We don't know the summer pattern yet. I can make it a guess, but I can't tell you what I am expecting perfectly. But I do want to tell you that this is going to get a lot of folks itching to get going fast if the mild air hangs around. So that's the other part of this. Big swings in temperatures this week, but we haven't broken the pattern, which is cold west, warm east. So there's going to be a lot of places here that just quickly get shots of cold air, go right back over mild. Easter is at the end of March this year, right? No, it's April 1. Uh,
Mhm.
there's gonna be a lot of folks just thinking, how do I get going as fast as possible? And with the mild conditions, I mean, I was outside yesterday in shorts and t-shirt here in Champaign, Illinois. It's very, very mild. So it's a lot. s- Don't hear me rambling. Hear me telling you, I think that the temperature pattern is going to determine the pace at which we plant this crop more than the precipitation. That's my end story there.
Okay. All right. That's a good thing to keep in mind. No, hey, you know what? Good thing to keep in mind for
Yeah.
sure. I want to back up just a second real quick because I just had this thought come into my head as you talk about how warm it has been. In
Mhm.
recent years, we've seen some fairly substantial severe weather outbreaks in parts of the country, in January, February, etc. And you mentioned maybe some severe weather this week. I mean, are we looking at a potentially large severe weather outbreak here, Eric?
Well, the system on Tuesday is perked up a lot of our ears. I'm worried about what it could do across northern Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. But the overall sentiment in the atmosphere is we're bringing systems through. And we're at the time of year. Spring is a time of overturning. It's where the atmosphere stays really cold aloft and really warm at the surface. That's the perfect setup. My concern about the severe weather season this year is elevated in the Midwest. Now, do I think we'll have a repeat of March 31st last year? Remember those 188 tornadoes in a single day? No one can predict that out this far, but I don't have a reason to tell you that this spring is going to be slow in terms of severe weather activity. So I think that this is going to be, I think it's going to be a quite active spring overall.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let's move to South America. I've been seeing some private crop estimates get lowered in Brazil and Argentina here in recent days, but that weather looks overall fairly good across Brazil and Argentina. It would seem if one's just taking a quick glance at the forecast. So, what are you seeing in terms of the weather forecast here moving forward as we're continuing to work through their growing season?
It's drier for most of Brazil. Only wetter spots are in northeast Brazil and then also in northern Argentina, parts of very southern Brazil, like Rio Grande do Sul. Those are only wet spots. So, what I'm concerned about is okay, if the private estimates keep coming in lower and lower, are they low enough to generate a reaction? And the general consensus I hear is you need to be down there below like 143 on soybeans before it's going to generate a reaction in the markets. And that's not my area of expertise. That's just me listening to people that are. And then the other side of it is, I think that if we continue to see the pattern on repeat, that my worry is that March is not a wet month for the newly planted safrinha crop for like Mato Grosso. And then on top of that, there's worry that we could get an early shutdown in April in Mato Grosso of the monsoon, which means the safrinha crop could start to suffer, not be able to hit its potential. But the tricky thing is I thought we were lower on acres. I keep hearing people say, no, 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 there's actually more than projected. We know that harvest pace in Mato Grosso is above the 5-year average. Planting of safrinha corn is 8% above where it was last year. I mean, so things
Mhm.
are moving. So it's going to be coming down to the timing of the March, April, and May rains for that safrinha crop. But soybeans, it rained in January. You can't argue with that. And they had some decent rains in February. So I don't know where the lowering of the estimates are coming from, unless we're just realizing the true impact of the October, November, December heat and drought. That could be it.
Yeah, no, that could be it. We'll just have to see how those combines roll in South America. Eric, good stuff before we wrap it up today. Anything final you want to share or reiterate for folks as you watch the weather this week?
Yeah, two things real fast. Watch El Nino, or let me watch it and tell you about it. What I mean by that is the ocean temperatures on the equatorial Pacific are still very warm. But you go down just 10, 15 meters into the ocean, and there's a lot of cold air beginning to, cold water beginning to upwell. When that surfaces, it's all of a sudden going to put a blue stripe right in the middle of El Nino, and there's going to be a whole lot of people that are going to try to make some sort of major claim as to what this means. I just want to let everybody know we've been watching this for a while. This is what happens. Don't let alarm bells go ringing in your ears when you see this happen over the month of March. The other thing too, Jesse, I don't ever watch the weather in Pakistan, but I'm watching the weather in Pakistan this week. It's very cold and extremely rainy, and that's a desert, which means we're going to get some rain in parts of Pakistan are desert. I think we're going to have to watch that pretty carefully as well. Plus, China finally came out of the deep cold it was in. Temperatures are recovering there too. So we'll have to watch all of these areas going through the rest of spring.
Well, folks can find more details of weather forecast for their backyard, ag-wx.com, ag-wx.com. And you can also sign up for Eric's weekly weather newsletter there too. Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions. Always good to chat with you, my friend. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, see you, Jesse.